Hey, you cool cats and kittens. Is that going to be my intro now? I guess so. Today I'm going to be ranking all of the maps in Risk of Rain 2, and if you're wondering, hey you heckin' hacker, how you going to rank a Stage 1 against a Stage 5? The answer is you really heckin' can't. So this list is going to be kind of scuffed, but I will be basing it on some criteria, which are amount of loot, enemy variety, bosses, secrets if applicable, how they compare to other possible maps on that stage, and just how heckin' enjoyable they are to play. I will be ranking the Roost and Plains variants together, and I will not be including Hidden Realms and Commencement. Cool as they are, they're just so different and really aren't comparable to the other core stages. Like I said, this list isn't perfect, but I'm like 80% happy with it. So coming in at number 13, bottom of F, is the worst map in the game, I have to say, is Wetland Aspect. And I think a lot of people can agree with me here. I won't say Wetland doesn't have anything going for it. The enemies here aren't too bad, it's pretty easy. You don't have to worry about blind pests, vermin, or clay templars. The boss monsters here don't drop very good yellows, but that's true of all the stage 2 maps. The main problem with this map is it leaves a lot to be desired from a gameplay/visual standpoint. You know, the entire map is brown and puke green, easily one of the most boring maps visually. Very, very dark as well. It's really hard to see anything too because the map has so much cover. You have to check behind corners and little pockets for loot. You can't just look at an area to see if it's worth your while. This is true to a certain extent on all maps, but it's most prevalent on Wetland. It also has the water. Fuck the water. The only redeemable thing about it is it gives you a good excuse to stare at the character's ass. I think the secret cave is really cool and easily the best part of the map, but after you unlock New Kahana, you really have no reason to go back, which I think is a shame. I wish there's more to it, like on Abandoned. The teleporter kind of blends in here too. It's not horrible, but compared to all the other maps, it's my least favorite. Next in F tier at number 12, I'll probably get drawn and quartered in the street for this, but I have to say Rallypoint Delta. Let me explain. This map is only this low because the DLC did it dirty. Pre-DLC, you had to deal with bison, which were annoying but not too bad. The main two enemies were Lemurians and Wisps. The DLC replaced them with blind pests and vermin, some of the most obnoxious enemies in the game. Vermin are specifically bad on Eclipse because they move at Mach 10. If you don't have any movement speed, you're gonna have a bad time here. There's also no loot on this map because TC drones and Shrines of Order take a ridiculous amount of credits. While Order Shrines are somewhat rare, you're gonna see at least one TC drone in 90% of your games. Typically, this map has half the loot as the other Stage 3 variants. Visually, I think it's cool, nowhere near as interesting as Sulfur Pools, but miles better than Scorched Acres. It also has some of the best bosses in the entire game. Clay Doomstriders suck, but Magma Worms and Imp Overlords drop arguably the best 2 yellow items in the game, which is very relevant with the inclusion of the Tricorn. Getting there in under 10 minutes lets you get the free Prion, which is cool, but not really worth it. Back in the day, Prion was considered one of the best equipments, but at this point, I don't think it's even close to being in the top 5. You can also soft lock yourself in this crate, which is fun, and the new portal flashbangs you. At the top of F tier, as much as it pains me to say, I have to put Aphelian-Sanctuary at number 11. From a visual standpoint, this is easily one of my favorite maps. I love that runic ancient technology aesthetic. I think they nailed it. The layout of this map is pretty interesting. The jump pads are reskin geysers, but they fit the theme of the stage. It has giant Among Us statues, kinda sus. But the enemies on the stage are just a pain in the ass to deal with. Like Rallypoint, you got blind pests and vermin, but then you got clay templars and pot goblins, which is just cruel on stage 2. And then for bosses, you got clay Doomstriders, beetle queens, and vagrants, which I can't really hold against it. All the stage 2 variants have bad boss items. Also, cleansing pools are like 5 times more common on this map. But yeah, good map, terrible, terrible enemies. Moving on to D tier. At number 10, Distant Roost. Distant Roost is the worst stage 1, but it doesn't belong in F tier. It's nowhere near as strong as Plains or Siphoned. Pre-DLC, this map had no loot. On average, you'd get 24% more items on Plains and 14% more equipment. Roost also takes a lot longer to traverse than Plains due to the verticality. My friend GamerHost made a really good video on this. While outdated, still very interesting. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Now, this would be an F tier if not for the recent patch where this map was given more chests. You still get more loot on Plains and Siphoned, so if you get Roost, you're starting at a disadvantage, but it's not as big of a deal anymore. Also, fun fact, this variation of Roost is the only map in the game that sometimes won't spawn a newt halter. Every other map in the game is guaranteed to have one newt somewhere on the stage. But I think considering the buff and the fact that this is only a stage 1, I couldn't justify putting it any lower. The only other map I have in D tier, at number 9, it's Scorched Acres.
Green Acres is the place to be.
This is technically the best stage 3 to get from a meta/looting standpoint. The boss items here are really good, and it's easier than Rallypoint and Sulfur for sure, but visually and from a gameplay perspective, it leaves a lot to be desired. Behind Wetland, this is the second most boring looking map in the game. It's not as dark as Wetland, and I like the sky here, but it's just kind of brown and green and not very interesting to look at. This map is really big as well, and only has the one geyser, so it takes 7 years to get from this part of the map to this part of the map, which might be okay if the entire map didn't look the exact same. There's like these 5 areas that are just giant purple crystals in the center of circular platforms, and then the rest of the map is just long winding pathways connecting them. The best part of this map is the hidden newt altar on top of the cliff. Easily my favorite newt in the game. You have to go way out of your way to find it, and I think it's really cool. I love when games reward you for exploring. This newt feels like an Easter egg that you weren't supposed to find, and I wish there was more stuff like this in the game. The enemies didn't change with the DLC, which I think is a shame. I think clay apothecaries would fit beautifully on this map. This map does have clay templars, but that's really the only hard enemy other than just beetles, wisps, and imps. Grove tenders are probably my favorite boss in the entire game. And this map has a lot of loot, like I said, probably the best stage 3 in that regard. Originally, it was much higher on the list, but the visuals and size of the map really drag it down. So moving on to C tier, and at the very bottom, at number 8, I'm gonna put Titanic Plains. Now, Titanic is by no means bad. It's a stage 1 variant, so it can't do anything crazy. It's meant to be a starting area, so it's unfair to pit it against a map like Sky Meadows, but this is a good map, and after Roost's buff, it's only slightly better. I personally am sick to death of this map after sitting on it for 24 hours 3 times. I'd be okay with never getting this map again, but it is iconic, and there's not much else to say about it. Next in C tier, at number 7, it's Siren's Call. I wanted to put this in F very badly. I hate this map. It's only this high because it's good for multiplayer, and because it looks pretty cool. Instead of getting one item from a legendary chest on this stage, you fight a boss, and upon defeating him, you're rewarded with a red for every person in your game, which is very powerful in multiplayer. In solo, I think the legendary chests are much better, especially now that the gut meta is a thing, which, by the way, aren't on this map. Another thing that isn't on this map is loot. You have a better shot at beating my grandson in Fortnite than you do finding loot on Siren's Call. And my grandson is cracked at Fortnite. But that's okay, because instead of loot, you can get a Shrine of the Woods.
10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, best king, best king.
Now, that's a bit of an exaggeration. There is some loot on Sirens, but not nearly as much as the other Stage 4 variants. On paper, it has the same amount of credits as Sundered, but the weight on Blood Shrines and Wood Shrines is super high, and for some reason, this is the only map that can't spawn Chance Shrines. Why? I don't know. Fuck you, it's Siren's Call. And then you got these bird motherfuckers throwing discs at you, making you feel like you're in the middle of a goddamn frisbee golf course. And now with the DLC, you have these larva shits sloshing around and slurping right in your ear. As far as boss items, Sirens is pretty middle of the road. Genesis Loop is trash. Empathy Cores are good if you're trying to fight Voidling, but otherwise trash. And Molten Perforator is one of the best yellows in the game. I am shitting on it quite a bit. It does have a really cool atmosphere, and the layout isn't that bad. But I've played games where I've literally gotten 2 chests on this map, and the longer I play, the more I dislike it. Honestly, for solo, I'd put this map high in F tier or in D. For multiplayer, it's I. To round off C tier, at number 6, it may be a little bit high, but I have to go with Siphoned Forest. The DLC has only been out a month and a half, and Siphoned Forest is already a classic in my mind. It's easily the best stage 1. It has so much loot. If you get good printers, you can leave the stage with max crit or a shit ton of speed. This map has 2 issues though. For one, its size. This map is massive, but you're punished less for taking your time on the stage than you are for taking your time on later stages. This map has a ton of loot to compensate as well. It does have blind pests and wisps, which are annoying, but manageable. It's a stage 1, it doesn't do anything crazy besides Keemstar's G Fuel Pit. Although I can't help but feel like there was supposed to be more to this map. That locked door is super frustrating. Overall though, super good map. I might have it a little bit high, but I refuse to put this lower than Siren, so deal with it. Moving on to B tier, at number 5, it's Sulfur Pools. The options for stage 3 are kinda rough, and Sulfur is no exception. The enemy variety here is, again, really hard to deal with. You got Templars and Blind Pests, kinda cringe. The Shungite aren't too bad though, but this map has some of the most annoying bosses with the worst boss items. Dune Striders suck, so do Beetle Queens. John Cena is the biggest pain in the ass. I have mixed feelings about him. I think he's definitely one of the most interesting bosses we've ever seen. I like that one of the ways they tried to balance him was by giving area of effect items like gas and will-o-wisps more of a use by killing his cores. Not a huge fan of his invincibility phase though, I think that can be kind of annoying, but it is unique to this boss, so I gotta give it some credit there. This is very much a love it or hate it map, and I love it. As far as map design goes, I think Sulfur Pools is some of Hopu's best work. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of the color palette here, but I think it's great. It makes it stand out and gives this map a ton of personality. I think the acid pools are a really interesting concept. It makes you think more about where you're moving, and it's kind of similar to the pots on Abandoned or the bombs on Rallypoint, but the acid pools here feel much more integrated into the map and for some reason much more dangerous. The underground section is cool, it's easy to get overwhelmed on this map, and the cave almost acts as a bunker. Overall, I really like this map, it's just Bing chilling, makes it really hard to deal with sometimes. This is probably going to be my most controversial pick, but next in B tier at number 4, it's Sundered Grove. From what I've seen, this is the most hated map in the game, and I think that's kind of criminal. I think visually, this is one of the most stunning and interesting maps in the game. This map creates that mysterious forest atmosphere way better than Wetland. This map is very big, but it has plenty of loot to compensate. Like Wetland, it's hard to scout for chests, you really have to comb the map, especially because chests blend in really well on this map, which is one of my biggest gripes, but I don't mind searching for chests nearly as much as I do on Wetland, purely because I find the environment to be interesting enough to warrant it. It also helps that the legendary chest has 5 locations, and I can understand why people find that annoying, but I like it. It gives me an extra incentive for exploring the map. Looking out for glowing mushrooms is just an additional thing to do while I'm looting. I think the map would be much more boring if it only had the one location like Abyssal. The map is also just pretty well designed. It doesn't take you super long to get from one end of the map to the other. There's tons of shortcuts and fast travel shrooms, which are just reskins of geysers again, but the mushrooms really add to the feel of the map, and excluding Void Locust, I think Sundered Grove has the best travel system in the entire game. Call me a dirty little piss grub if you must, but I'm genuinely a fan of Grove. Now, where it falls apart is the enemies and difficulty. Did you know that Sundered Grove is the only map scavengers can spawn on pre-loop? Yeah, if you get here late enough, I think after 32 minutes, there is a small chance for scavengers to spawn, which is good if you're powerful enough and can snowball your run into greatness, but it can also kill a run just as often. However, the scavs aren't nearly as bad as having vagrants, Dunestriders, and Titans spawn in as common enemies. Yeah, this stage 4 is oftentimes more difficult than stage 5, and Sundered Grove is often where runs go to die. Pre-DLC, it would have been a lot lower, but the DLC removed Elder Lemurians from the spawn pool, which made this map much more manageable. It did add larvae though, which are just kinda generally the worst thing ever. Gups were also added to the spawn pool, which is really nice because Gup breaks the economy. They give you an insane amount of V-Bucks, seriously, if you get a Gup event on the stage, just go straight to the teleporter, you'll have enough money. The boss items do suck here though. Once again, you got the Holy Trinity, it's Vagrants, Titans, and Dunestriders, oh my. But overall, Grove, dare I say, is underrated. To me, it's easily a top 5 map, and if you still hate it, that's okay. Let's just agree that the new music here slaps. Also, Stadia best platform. Moving to A tier, once again, there's only one map. At number 3, it's Sky Meadows. This had a guaranteed spot at the top no matter what, because it's not competing against anything. It's the only stage 5 variant, and this map is a ton of fun. I adore this map, the atmosphere is great, has arguably the best music in the game, and it's just generally Grandma Pog. It's also the biggest and most expansive map in the game. It has multiple levels, secret areas. This artifact portal is really, really cool. It makes you go back around the game and look for codes. I love that, even though it doesn't really work in this day and age. The bosses here aren't the greatest thing though. Hitting a few mountain shrines, you can get an overloading worm, which has probably the best boss item in the game, tied with Shatter Spleen. This map used to have magma worms, but those were actually replaced with John Xena, so instead of molten perforators, it's defense nucleuses now, which is kinda Grandpa Rage. And grandparents are scary now. Pre-DLC, they sucked. They were so bad that their best attack was throwing rocks at you. Get the fuck out of here, you're an old man. This is the best attack you know. I learned that when I was 5. But with the DLC, the Praise the Sun attack is really scary. Standing in there for more than a second can take you from full health to almost dead. And Planula usually isn't worth it. You need to have a very specific build for it to be useful, but it is unique to the stage. Overall though, the stage is a classic and it deserves the number 3 spot. Moving on to S tier, these are the maps you want in every run. Coming in at number 2, it's Abyssal Depths. Stage 4 has some flawed maps. Both Siren's Call and Sundered Grove have some kind of bullshit you need to deal with. but Abyssal is free of that. Abyssal has the same amount of loot as Grove, unless the cave is open. If the cave is open on Abyssal, you get 30% more loot. This stage nailed the hell atmosphere. This is the only map that feels like you're actually indoors, or at least very deep underground. Magma worms and imp overlords fit perfectly on this map. They also happen to have some of the best boss items in the game. You do have Stone Titans as well, which is not very good, but 2 for 3 on bosses is the best you can ask for. You have the legendary chest here, and Gups to farm for money. You also don't have to deal with any bullshit larvae like on Grove and Sirens. You do have Elder Lemurians though, which are scary, and you have Hermit Crabs as well, which are a pain in the ace. They're impossible to see, and if you stand in a location for more than 2 seconds, you'll get sniped. Bungus is almost unusable on this stage. But those are really the only 2 things I dislike about it. Getting Abyssal is a breath of fresh air after the trial that Stage 3 can be. This map is iconic, it's great visually and from a gameplay standpoint. Easily an S-tier map, and interchangeable with my next pick. Which brings me to my number 1 best map in the game. It's Abandoned Aqueduct, baby. It's here for one reason and one reason alone. Kaijaro and Runald bands. This map doesn't have as much loot as Aphelion or Wetland, but it more than makes up for that with practically guaranteeing you some of the best items in the game at Stage 2. In multiplayer, you can get the bands every time, and in solo, you can get pretty consistent with rolling the pot onto the buttons. Also, some characters have ways to press down the button in their kit. The pot rolling is one of my favorite things in this game. It almost feels like a mini-game sometimes, because the pots have their own weird physics, and it's a really fun and interesting challenge to experiment with. Pots are something you can get good at, but never truly master, and I love that. Easily the best secret in the game, and by far the most rewarding. I love the desert theme, and I think the simulacrum variant of the stage is sexy as well. I've played for so many hours, and after a while, things start to blend together, but I still get excited every time I get abandoned, which is why it's my top spot. Like I said, scuffed list, but I'm pretty happy with it, and I do like all of these maps, even though I was hard on a few of them. Before you click away, stick around because I have something cool at the end of this video. But real quick, I'm gonna plug my Twitch. I've been going for Wave 1000 in Simulacrum, and it's been a bit of a trial. You can find me at pigpiss.com. That's not a joke, that's actually where I stream. Also, I just want to say thanks for watching. I know this video wasn't up to my usual standards, far from my best work, and I almost didn't upload it. I've been working on a really comprehensive Mercenary guide for the last 2 weeks, and that project has ballooned in size, so this was just some shit-ass project I put together in like a day to take a breather from it and to give you guys something. That video should be out in a week or 2, and I'll give you a little teaser at the end of the video. I don't generally do this type of content, so leave a like if you want more of these kinds of videos, subscribe if you're new, and let me know what your favorite map is. Alright, ta-ta for now.